Alright, so what I'm going to show is the way that I like to open the guard on the ground. And it's kind of like I took bits and pieces from different people I've trained with and kind of put it together in a way that works for me and for my body. I don't want to say it's the best way to open the guard, because if you ask Hodger Gracie, he's going to have one way, you ask Salo, he's going to have another way. So everybody has to find their own way that works for them. But for me, my first priority is to make sure that I keep my posture. And to keep my posture, I think what a lot of people do is they focus on this hand right here to keep them up. So they put a lot of pressure in this hand. And the problem with that is that that hand, it's easy for my opponent to dominate that hand. And once he pulls and breaks that, if I put all my weight through that hand, I'm going to come forward. So I have to make sure that this hand is really just to keep him from sitting up. So if he sits up, I can push him down, but it's not necessarily what's keeping me up. This hand right here, the one that I grabbed just inside on the pants, on the material right here, right by the hip bone, this is the one that I want to keep firm and use this one to keep my head and my posture up like this. And this hand is a little bit harder, especially with the elbow inside. It's a little bit harder for him to pull and break. You know, I've got a pretty tight little wedge right against his hip, grabbing the material and hiding my elbow inside. The other thing that I do is, for him to break my posture, his hands alone, it's not going to work. Just by pulling me, it's going to be hard. Even if I don't grab anything, just with his hands, it's hard for him to break my posture. But if he uses his legs and brings his legs in and uses his hands, then it suddenly becomes easier for him to break my posture. So what I have to do is, whenever I feel his legs starting to pull my hips forward, my body forward, I have to do this little stretch back, like stretching my lower back away from him every time. So as I feel him pull in, I do this little thing. My upper body doesn't move much, my head is still up, my hands are still in position, but as he pulls me forward, I do this little stretch back. So if you take this out here, all I'm doing is just stretching my lower back away against his ankles. It makes it hard for him to pull in. So if I have my hands here in position, my head's up, I can still look at him, but I want to keep my head up, and I want to roll my shoulders and keep my head down here. So every time he pulls in, I stretch my hips back into him this way. And then that's going to make, so try to break my posture this way, see, this way, just stretching this back. Okay, so even if the guy has strong legs, that's usually enough, especially with this. It's just pulling this back. Okay. So the next thing, and this goes along with your base, okay, is that whenever my hips raise up, whenever they leave the ground, I'm vulnerable to being swept. So the cue for the guy on the ground when he wants to sweep someone is to see where my hips are. If my hips are in motion, if they're not fully in base, if I'm not that full kind of complete triangle, that's his opportunity. It's like a little window for him to open, for him to sweep me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, when I try to open his guard, I'm going to make sure that my hips stay as low to the ground as possible. So if I move them up, it's going to be the least. So the further I move them, if I lift my hips all the way up, now I'm completely out of base. If I go halfway, I'm kind of out of base. That's why some people can get away with, you know, putting one knee in instead of the other knee, because they're out of base, but they're not completely out of base. And their athleticism or their experience is enough to keep their base, even when they're kind of doing something that maybe could be done a little differently, a little better. So what I'm going to do now is to open his guard on the ground. When I'm here, I'm going to first move this leg away. So I try to keep my hips low, and I move this hip away here. But now, when I do that, I'm really pushing in, and I'm leaning to this direction, right here, okay? So I'm kind of leaning my head a little bit away from him this way. Now, I'm going to take my right knee, and I'm going to circle it in, but as I go, I'm going to try not to get my shoulders, my head, anything to raise up. I'm going to try to go as low as possible here, just right into his tailbone. So I make just a little circle. I move this one out, and then I make a little circle here without raising my hips up too much, and now I stretch back and use my hands here to extend this way. And what I like to do at that point, keep this one inside, and this leg, I open it up pretty wide, and now I have choices of which way I'm going to go. Whether I drop my knee this way, whether I'm going to dive underneath if he starts to raise his legs to play, just depending on how I want to pass. So I think for me, this is one of the best ways to open the guard on the ground. So from this angle, let's try this way, this is good. So from here, I have this hand. You can grab both. Sometimes people just put the hand in the solar plexus here. I'm just not going to grab this one because he can pull it across. So if I grab anything, it's either going to be both or this one on this side. This hand's going to go in here. All right, when I feel him pull me towards him, I'm going to do that little stretch back. And now I'm going to slide this knee away. Here, do a little circle with my other knee. Here, and now I stretch and immediately open my knee out to the side. When I push it out to the side like this, it makes really the de la riva from there kind of hard for him to get because my leg is pointing out this way. It's not right up the middle here where he can slide that in and kind of dominate my leg with his leg. All right, that's it.